Good morning. Happy Saturday morning to you from Cole and I. Cole's just down here. Here he is. He's right here. You can't see the camera though. Want to say good morning? Good morning. Here we are. That wasn't really his voice, if you're wondering. Of course, you knew that. Hey, we've been talking about praise and worship for the last 2 weeks, and how praise and worship, it's more than just what you do on a Sunday morning. It should be a lifestyle. It's how we live. We praise and worship God in the activities that we do in our daily life. We should have that focus. Now, that said, it is something we do on Sunday mornings as well. So we don't want to neglect that part either. So Sunday morning services, man, worship services is very, very important. In Hebrews, now we don't know who exactly wrote Hebrews. Most people think it's Paul. So we'll go with that. So let's say that Paul writes in Hebrews chapter 10, a verse you probably have heard before. So let me just read it. So it's verses 24 and 25. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. So he's talking about rub off each other, kind of encourage each other, lift each other up, encourage each other to do great works of love and of good deeds to those around us. But we do that together in community. We say, hey man, let's go do this, let's go do that. But the other part of that is worshiping God. And we'll continue on here with verse 25. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. When we meet together, we encourage one another. We worship God and we praise God. And so, obviously, we have music and we sing to that music, but we sing in unison together, agreeing on the words that are in front of us. Well, we probably agree because we're all singing them, but we sing songs to God, and you can do that at home, and that is awesome. You can put on a YouTube video of Christian worship, or have your Christian CDs, or you have your instruments and guitars and that kind of stuff, and that is really beautiful. I have had great encounters with God driving down the highway, listening to worship on a CD or on a USB drive. Those times alone are fantastic, but the times together are fantastic as well. Matter of fact, they're sometimes even better because we're doing it together as a community. And also part of that worship is the sermon. When the pastor is speaking, like I'll be speaking on Sunday on praise and worship, we listen to the words of God and we say, okay, God, I have reverence for you and what you are saying to me out of your word, and I submit to that word. That's an act of worship as well. The tithing that we do, that's an act of worship. The caring for one another during the service is an act of worship. Praying for each other is an act of worship. Praying to God is an act of worship. And we do it as a community together. There's times alone for sure, but there's also times together. God's created us to be beings of community. Back in Acts chapter 1, when God created man, he said it's not good for man to be alone, right? So he created Eve as well. Community is really quite important. So, yeah, so many different ways to praise and worship God that we talked about the last 2 weeks. We'll talk about it on Sunday. And here's an invitation. If you live in Whitewood or you're around our community, our service starts at 10:30, and we'd love to have you there. We'd love to welcome you in. It's a church of loving people. But if you're not around our place, or you go to a different church in Whitewood, and make sure you attend your church, or go find a good church to attend. Now, I know there can be some really despicable ones out there, and some of them, they don't show it right away. But there's a lot of really, really good ones. Matter of fact, I'd say there's far more good ones than there's not. Take a chance. If you're serving God, you want to know more about God, do it in community with others. It's so much easier, and it'll be enjoyable. But more importantly, you'll meet with Jesus, and that's the biggest part. So that's the most important part. So have an awesome Saturday, Sunday. Go find someone to worship with.